part of the responsibility, or I think part of giving these countries, what's the word, consequences, is for us to pull our funding as well from their economies. Part of my dissertation, I'm in my final year of university, part of my dissertation is to examine how the trade deals between the US and the Cayman Islands is impacting our food security, right? And I believe, looking at statistics, I found that Cayman gives the US about $27 million yearly simply for meats and meat products, for meat and meat products alone. So I can imagine that if my government decided, United States, you're not doing enough to curb the climate change, you're not doing enough to mitigate these issues and to help us with adaptation, we're pulling our deals. And that kind of hit to their economy, to their job sectors, to their spending ability, to their trading partners across the region as well. Because if other Caribbean countries see us do that, they can be like, wait a minute, we don't have to wait for you to give us what we want. Because our neighbors over in Jamaica or Suriname or Belize, we can work with them and get this together. And I think if our governments were able to see the value in that kind of risky maneuver, then we'd be in a much better position to hold these countries accountable.
Hi everyone, my name is Hipólito Novello. I am a mentor for Climate Tracker. I'm from Belize, and welcome to Climate Tracker Calabash podcast. I hope you guys are doing well, and let me introduce you to some beautiful Caribbean people. Big up on yourself. Let's start off with Aliyah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been working in journalism, and specifically climate journalism, for about a year and a half now. It really kickstarted for me when I went to COP27 last year, or earlier this year, rather. And it really just opened my eyes to all of the amazing opportunities and the amazing people that make up the climate justice community. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm very excited to talk about our topic today, and I can't wait for the discussion.
Thank you so much. Priscilla, what about you? Tell us about yourself.
Yes, my name is Priscilla. I'm based in Suriname. I've been working in the journalism field for like 5 years now. And I started working as a freelancer almost 2 years ago. And that's where my interest in climate issues and climate change issues and environmental issues started really. I'm looking forward to the discussion because like Dwayne said, in Suriname, we don't really have a problem, especially with Sargasso, but I found some things.
Thank you so much. Dwayne, what we need to know about you, tell us more about yourself.
Hi guys, so I'm Dwayne Moody. I am from Belize. I've been in journalism for the past 15 years. Actually, August 11th made 15 years that I've been in this industry. I've covered everything from crime to social issues. And over the years, I've developed a passion for climate change and the environment. And so just recently, I won several climate change awards with the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. And honestly, it's a pleasure to be able to be a part of this discussion, talking about issues that are affecting the Caribbean, and believe to know that Belize is no exception from the rest in terms of erosion and Sargasso. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, everyone. So let's kick off the discussion. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, what exactly is the issue we're talking about today, and where did it originate? And I think the best person to answer that, as Ali had mentioned, would be Dwayne, who has suggested the topic itself. So Dwayne, talk to us about what we're going to talk to about today and why is it important?
Okay, so the first topic, erosion. Now, what is erosion? It really is something that we've been seeing in the Caribbean in terms of the washing away of land. A lot of countries are experiencing a change in their coastline, and it's as a result of erosion. This is being caused by, of course, climate change, sea level rise, and a lot of other factors that, and what it does is that it changes the makeup of a particular country. There are social economic impacts that it has on the environment and culture, the displacement of people. And so it is a real problem, a real issue. And when it comes to specifically in the country of Belize, we're seeing communities completely washed away, cultures being displaced. There's a particular case in Belize that the entire a town, a place that was once a town known in Belize as Monkey River, it was the first town, and it is now been reduced to only a community of about 52 families, from 4,000 persons to only 52 families or 250 persons. It is real devastation that is a result of the changing climate that we have. Other coastline communities across the country are also seeing changes in their makeup, and families have had to put in place some mitigating factors and trying to deal with the issue and adapt to the fact that, oh, you know what, the land beneath their feet is being washed away. And so it's a very, very serious conversation that needs to be had and is taking place at the community level, the national level, as well as the regional and international level. Sargassum is the other topic that we also chose. And while, yes, it does not originate in this region, it comes from, of course, off the African coast and the Sargasso Sea and climate change, as well as the Sahara dust, and all of these other factors have led to this algae being washed away and coming into the Caribbean. It is littering our coastlines, sandy beaches, beautiful, pristine waters. They're completely, I guess, it's an unsightly scene when you're seeing this brown, smelly plant-like material lining your coast, lining your beaches, and the fact that environmentalists, the fact that hoteliers, people in the tourism industry having to deal with it, find a way to remove it from in front of their properties so that, you know what, the tourists who come to enjoy the pristine waters and or beaches are able to enjoy just that. And so these are very serious issues. And of course, all come with health implications as well. And so these are very serious issues that need to be discussed. And it is due to climate change, the changing climate that is happening, and it's only getting worse. And unless something is done, we will be having this problem, you know? But those are the two topics that we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Dwayne. Now, Ali and Priscilla, in terms of erosion, Dwayne mentioned, it's evidence of the impacts of climate change. So in your country, do you believe that the government or policymakers and the public are taking this particular matter serious? Aliyah, let's start off with you.
Sure, thank you. I definitely think the public is taking it very seriously. I've seen at least 2 news articles come out about our coastlines changing and the beaches being washed away in the last month or so, maybe. And while that may not seem like a large social uproar about it, because these are beaches that people have grown up on. These are beaches where people went camping for Easter and fishing with their grandparents. these are things that are connected to us culturally. And I think people are recognizing that, like, as Dwayne said, these are tangible issues. And once they see that the beaches are essentially being dwindled down to nothing, they need somebody to step in and take that action. But I can't necessarily say that I see the government doing a lot about it. There have been some requests from private entities for the government to do replenishing of the beaches, but I have yet to hear anything in that regard, which is really unfortunate.
And in your country, Priscilla, is that the same situation there?
Yes, in Suriname, there's the exact same situation. But the public and the government, I must say, I think, yes, they take it serious because the heart of the city, the center of Suriname, the capital of Suriname, Paramaribo, lies alongside the coast. And Paramaribo is basically the place where all the important economic activities take place. So the government is very, they are really trying to protect Paramaribo, but also the other districts or areas alongside the coast. There is a particular district called Coroni in our country, where while driving to Coroni, you can literally step out of your car and walk a few meters down in the sea. That's how bad it gets. So, in years from now, they are afraid that the street will wash away because the sea is pushing inside the land. In 2018, there was a dike built to help the situation, but we really need a lot of more. We really need more dams to protect the land, especially in Coroni.
Okay, so in terms of, okay, so before we go to the issue with Sargasso, I want to know how Bex Uno Bex. I want to know how frustrated Uno frustrated, because I could sense the frustration, but what is the level of frustration Uno have that one, maybe the government not pay attention to the situation. I want to know how Bex Uno Bex. I want to know how frustrated Uno frustrated. Since the top, but okay, so the government not really pay attention to this. You have people, living human beings affected, entire communities, entire cultures are being affected. How Bex you Bex, Priscilla?
Like in the case of Coroni, there was like I said, when you drive into Coroni, you can see many deserted homes. That means these people they were literally driven by the sea away from their homes. And this issue, there's a historical issue because it dates back from the 60s, where they already had problems with a dam the government was going to build. The scientists in that time predicted that it will cause problems in the future, which is exactly what's happening now. The dam breaks, and when it breaks, all the agricultural areas are flooded, and the people are left with the consequences because the government does little to compensate them for their losses. And these districts, they lie far away from Paramaribo, so they mostly rely on agriculture for their living. And it's really sad that this is happening because it's not their fault, actually. So where the government is doing little or nothing to help them, it's really sad. They have to literally send a lot of letters. They will literally have to beg the government for help before they will do something. Which differs from Paramaribo, because Paramaribo is more important for the government. So if something happens in Paramaribo, the government quickly responds because they know the impact of something bad happening in Paramaribo, where the heart of I will say the heart of the country lies in Paramaribo. All the important offices, the ministries, they are located in Paramaribo. So if something happens there, it means we have nothing left. But it's just sad for those communities, really.
And that's the thing, right? We vote Uno in. We voted for you guys to protect our best interests. I'm not supposed to beg you I'm not supposed to beg the government for make Uno help we prosper in life and stuff like that, right? So, Aliyah, right? Because when I bex, I want broke up things. When I bex, I want to go rant to my friends. I just rant about why the government that I did this, why the government is doing this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel then that you see little progress in addressing these kind of issues?
Honestly, it's so much more frustrating when I consider the fact that Cayman is so tourism focused. That is one of our primary economic sources, and it's sort of a double-edged sword because on the one end, our government doesn't seem to be very interested in developing other sectors of Cayman and giving the youth an opportunity to build their skills and expand outside of tourism because tourism is what makes the most money. But at the same time, they're not protecting the things that bring in tourists. So it's you're gonna make me upset. When I see that there are private entities having to beg the government to help them and having to beg the government to help them with this erosion problem and seeing nothing being done about it, it makes me question where their motives lie. What is the point of us putting you in office if you're not willing to make hard decisions and to get the ball rolling?
Great, and in Belize, is that the same situation? Is the government not doing anything to address the impacts of climate change, particularly beach erosion and erosion in general? Or do you think that the government is doing, or they're not doing enough? What say you doing, Moody?
I think in Belize, guys, the, the government has um, is trying their best to do what they can, but what we found is that community leaders, people are taking actions into their own hands. So, in the example that I gave you guys about Monkey River, what it's been documented over the years how the land was being washed away. People's homes were literally caving into the water. They lost about a mile of beach and all of that. And it seemed that the government was not doing anything to even address it. And so maybe not for not wanting to, but the fact that, you know what, it takes long to do any kind of process to get in there and do the mitigating efforts, right? And so what happened was that there was this guy from a neighboring community that decided, you know what, I'm going to build a seawall. I'm going to use my own finances and do what I have to do and build a seawall. And he did, and literally brought back a portion of the beach. It was his own monies that were invested, which is kind of frustrating, and I can get that because it's like, man, where is the government to assist us with it, right? And so there are some efforts. We know that there's the Ministry of Blue Economy that was recently, a portfolio that was recently made, created here in Belize under this new administration. And it focuses on dealing with issues like that, erosion and all of that, as well as the Ministry of Climate Change. So there are efforts being made, but I think it's an issue of how urgent they're working on it. I think that is what is frustrating. There's no sense of urgency per se. And the thing is that also Belize, as a small country, the finances are not there. They're dependent on climate finance to assist. And guess what? Accessing climate finance is a whole other issue too. And so I think it starts from the top and it goes right down, and so we're just experiencing that.
You can go ahead, Aliyah. I see you have your hand raised.
Thanks. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Dwayne was saying. I've worked with various government agencies and seen the way that a lot of these decisions and processes take time. I understand that. I'm sympathetic to that. And I think if there were any government officials listening to this, I think I want them to know that we understand that, but the actions that we need to be taken, they need to be visible to the public eye, because otherwise people are going to feel like there is nothing being done, there is no initiative, and like Dwayne said, there's just no sense of urgency. I think a lot of what we see with how people react to emergencies is if it's tangible, if it's in their faces and they can perceive it for themselves and understand it for themselves. So yeah.
Thank you, Priscilla. You can go ahead.
Yes, I think I want to fill in on what Aliyah has just said, because if you come to Suriname, if you ask someone from Suriname, who plants mangroves or who really does something about the erosion problem, they will call the name of Professor Naipal and not the government. So if the government, just like Aliyah said, if the government is doing something, then it shall be seen. We should know that, because even me, if you ask me, I don't know any other name to call for you than Professor Naipal or WWF, just the international environmental organization. But from the government itself, I don't know what they are doing.
All right, so before we move on to the Sargasso issue, this is what we want. For government officials who are listening, we want action being done to address erosion in our countries. And we want it not tomorrow, not the next day, worse, no next year. We want it now. Sargasso. Priscilla, how challenging is the issue in addressing sargassum in your country?
I will say at this point, not really challenging, but I think we have seen that it could be a problem in the future, so we are already taking action. The first time we noticed the sargassum bloom coming closer was in 2011 through satellite images. We saw that, that it was coming closer to the coast. And in 2014, it was the first time that it landed on the coast in Brahms Point, where the sea turtles lay there, where they hatch. And from that moment on, in 2014, 16, 17, and 18, it has been the same every year. And finally, in 2020, they started a research to know how sargassum might impact the megafauna in the ocean. So the problem that started with the fishermen, the sargassum was plugged into their fishing nets, and that led to damages. So that was the first problem. And the other thing is that the sea turtles were having problems getting into the sea, the baby turtles. And so basically that's the only problem. It's not a really big issue in Suriname, but we know it might be a bigger issue, so we are already taking action to conduct research to know how it can impact our wildlife.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Priscilla. And I'm glad you mentioned those other examples, because a lot of people believe that all the sargassum that stink up the beach, which is true, they're nasty, and smell really, really bad. I hate it, yuck, forever, right? But sargassum affects a lot of other stuff. Aliyah, what about in your country?
Thank you. I think one of the biggest issues for us with sargassum is, aside from the visual appeal, it adds to the erosion issue that we were discussing, actually, because as it comes in and out, it's pulling sediment and sand with it, and it's eroding our beaches actively. As Priscilla said as well, it hinders the ability of as Priscilla said, it hinders the ability of turtles to come in and nest and to get back out, especially baby turtles. And there's also the issue of them suffocating the coral that we have. And our coral is something that is world renowned. Our reefs and just our waters in general is something that brings in a lot of attention and tourism internationally. And I think the fact that the sargassum just continues to increase and increase on such a frequent level is also what makes it really hard to deal with. Because I'll drive to work in the morning and see mounds of sargassum being cleared from the beach by government workers. And by time I am out the next day, it's right back where it was. So I think that aspect of it makes it really hard to handle properly and address on an efficient level.
Yeah, and I believe too as well. Then they try to do other stuff with sargassum. Then they try use it for landfill. Then they try use it for build blocks, for build houses. Is that some of the other things that are some of the things that the government officials there in countries like yours, Priscilla, they're looking at?
I didn't find anything what they did with the sargassum. I don't know if it was even that much, because it only blooms it only appears on the coast on certain times of the year. The research didn't show when the research is concentrated more on the on the megafauna and finding out how it could impact them. The organization conducting the research is Green Heritage Fund Suriname. They focus on marine wildlife, marine life. So in Suriname, it is not really, we don't really know what is done with it.
Maybe Dwayne, you can tell us more about what is being done with sargassum in Belize. Because I'm gonna tell Aliyah and Priscilla, we done with sargassum. We don't want sargassum that much, but it's to come. And then the forecast is that larger sargassum mats, they're on their way to the Caribbean, right? And some you have some NGOs and some government departments doing several things to mitigate the effects of sargassum. What is Belize doing?
Well, like I said earlier, guys, we have the Ministry of Blue Economy that has been working to look at what is being done in, say, places like Mexico, which is neighboring to us in the north, and they have this machine that is out on the water that captures the sargassum before it gets past our reef and along the coast. That is an option that they're looking at to see how they can capture it from before it reaches. Belize has the second largest barrier reef in the region, and it is a wonder. It's something that people travel to the country to come and look at. What we've seen is that it has an impact on tourism. It is a health hazard because of uh, the bagasse, the byproduct that comes um, of the sargassum after it dries and all of that. There's this stench that comes from it, so there are health hazards associated with it. What we've seen, or prime tourism destinations, what they've been doing is that they've hired additional staff to clean the beach area, and so there is that economic aspect to it. So outside of the cleaning, it is being used as landfill. It is being used as fuel, biofuel for energy. It is also, most recently, we did a story, one of my colleagues did a story in San Pedro last week, actually, where they're doing Sargasso blocks. So they're engineers are taking the sargassum and using it to create blocks to build houses, etc. And so the government, of course, is supporting these things, but there are people who, environmentalists, as well as persons who just in general want to do something with this. They're trying to find ways to mitigate. Because it is a problem. Like Hippolyto said, it is there's a lot more that is coming to the region, and we have to be proactive in our approach and what we plan to do to address it. And so it has to be a collaborative effort, I would say, to get it done. We know municipal leaders, municipal governments have been working along with stakeholders from the hotel association, property owners, to see how they can deal with that. And it ties into the erosion aspect, because really, guys, the land is washing away. It is being replaced by the sargassum, and really, it's nothing that anybody wants to hear. So there's the land, the tangible component, and there's also the intangible component where you're seeing the social impacts, the loss of culture. You're seeing health hazards that are tied to both sargassum and the erosion.
And do you guys believe that in terms of erosion and the issue with sargassum, that each country should tackle it individually, or is it that they should tackle it as a region? Let's hear what you have to say, Alia.
I think that's a really good question. From my perspective, the Caribbean tends to do best when we work together. I think there has been a big boost recently in an individualistic perspective on societal issues and economic issues and things of that nature. And from what I'm seeing, it hasn't really gotten this far. So I definitely think that for these two issues that, if anything, unify us as a region, we definitely need to be working together and sharing resources so that nobody suffers too much and that we can get this under control in a timely manner.
Priscilla, do you believe that as a regional bloc, we should go at it these two issues in a united front, or each country should just do what they have to do to address it locally?
I definitely think we should work together on this issue because most of our let's not say most of our country, but some of our countries are not doing well economically, financially. We have issues, and for example, Suriname, this issue is new for us, so we can't tackle it alone. So we will have to work together with the rest of the Caribbean that already has the experience in fighting this issue, so we can learn from them, learn from their scientists, their experts, and tackle this issue. So I think it's something we should work together. We can't do it alone.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the climate justice aspect of it. Because the Caribbean is one of the most vulnerable regions when it comes to climate change. We know the cause of the problem. This is not for we fault. But that we detect everything, that we did the whole brunt of it, our people, the Caribbean people, that suffer the most. When you hear that big polluter countries like China, Russia, the US, the UK, India are causing this issue, this global issue that no one don't know, it might not even done in the next 20 years. It might keep going. When you hear that these countries will have lot of money, they have trillions of money, right? That they're not really they help we fight for them the problem that they create for we. What goes through your mind when you hear that, Wayne?
um, it's a talk shop. I think that it gets frustrating. Listening, having attended two consecutive COPs, I am telling you, it is a talk shop. We need to move away from having these discussions, even though I understand there incremental advances that are made, it is not being done fast enough. These countries must be held accountable. They have to make finances available, funds available, so that countries like Belize, countries in the Caribbean region can adapt. I think in my mind, mitigation works only in some areas, but for the most part, we are adapting to the issue of climate change. The changes that need to happen, and I'll give you an example. Belize's carbon output is minuscule. The Caribbean region's output is minuscule, but yet we're feeling the brunt of it. And even though we're putting in place all these nationally determined contributions and all of that, because that is what the international agency is asking for us to do, what about these bigger countries? They are not being held accountable. They're coming to the table and they're talking about, yes, these are the changes that need to be made, but they're not putting the money where their mouth is. You understand? I'll give you a perfect example. Belize City, which is the old capital, is several feet below sea level. That's the reality. We have a seawall. That's the only thing that is protecting us right now from water washing away half of the city. What do we do with that if the situation is not going to change? You said 20 years. In 20 years' time, it will still be here. It will be here for longer than that at the rate at which we're going. Climate change is here to stay, and we need to do something about it. But is the onus on us? We who are not really contributing to the bigger problem, we who it has been established are not responsible for what is happening. it's frustrating. I that goes to where I'm upset, and I'm not sure that it's the government that can do anything, because they go there as a bloc, as the Caribbean bloc, fighting for us, as small island developing states fighting for us. But is it really making a difference? I don't know. I don't know. I
I
don't
want to
know.
make you get vexed. I want to make everybody get vexed over the issue. I want to make people get frustrated because only some of them they might understand and listen to me. Aliyah, what do you think about what Dwayne said?
I think he's spot on, honestly. The one thing I do want to add is that part of the responsibility, or I think part of giving these countries, what's the word, consequences, is for us to pull our funding as well from their economies. Part of my dissertation, I'm in my final year of university, part of my dissertation is to examine how the trade deals between the US and the Cayman Islands is impacting our food security, right? And I believe, looking at statistics, I found that Cayman gives the US about $27 million yearly simply for meats and meat products. For meat and meat products alone. So I can imagine that if my government decided, United States, you're not doing enough to curb the climate change, you're not doing enough to mitigate these issues and to help us with adaptation, we're pulling our deals. And that kind of hit to their economy, to their job sectors, to their spending ability, to their trading partners across the region as well. Because if other Caribbean countries see us do that, they can be like, wait a minute, we don't have to wait for you to give us what we want. Because our neighbors over in Jamaica or Suriname or Belize, we can work with them and get this together. And I think if our governments were able to see the value in that kind of risky maneuver, then we'd be in a much better position to hold these countries accountable.
Great, thank you for that. And I think, Priscilla, you agree? Do you agree?
Yes, and that's the power of unity. Because just like Elias stated, if Brazil says, Belize says, we are not giving you this because of this, and Suriname says, oh, we need the money, so let's give it to them, then there will be no change. Because those big countries, if we compare our emissions rate to those big countries with the big factories and the big companies, it's nothing actually. They are the ones putting us in this problem, and meanwhile our communities are losing their land, they are losing their heritage, and it's painful to see people having to dislocate because of something they know nothing about. Usually these communities, they don't even know what climate change is, but they are the ones that are affected by the consequences of what these big companies and countries are doing. So I really think we should, just like Dwayne said, at COP, it's talking. We've been talking for years, but nothing changes. We've been discussing these issues for years, but yet we didn't see any money. They just like support us they are acting like they want to help us adapt to the climate change, but they are doing nothing on their end. But how long can we adapt? Meanwhile, there is erosion, sea level rises. At some point, there will be nothing left. Meanwhile, we'll be just trying to adapt all this year. So there must be something done. I really think that we need to do something. As the Caribbean, we need to have that unity to do something at this point.
Exactly, because we don't tire the talk. We don't tire the talk. People literally, the dead communities literally, they get under the sea like the Little Mermaid and that kind of thing. But we don't tire it. Cultures are being lost. Intangible heritage are being lost, Aliyah, you raise your hand. What say you?
Yeah, I think that Priscilla's spot on. And if you think about it, I know that the concept of pulling funding or using a different trade deal with another Caribbean country rather than a bigger country like the US or the UK might seem strange or scary to some people. But if you think about it in the sense of economic policies, when the US is upset with another country, say China, for example, what do? They put tariffs on their imports. And when the UK is in disagreement with another country, they pull their trade agreements. It's really, we have to understand that there's a game afoot. And if we are not actively playing our part to make these countries realize that we mean business, we're going to get walked all over. And it's actively happening at the COPs and at all of these international meetings, that our governments could take a page out of our books, not just about the journalism that we do and the work that we disseminate, but this collaboration. People from completely different countries within the region coming together to share ideas and discuss what it is that needs to be done, but then also going out and making actionable work. I think that is something that could really be modeled throughout the region. And Dwayne, what you said is spot on about using Belize as an example for other countries to follow, because there is so much genius just absolutely coursing through the Caribbean. There's so much intelligence and innovation. And it just seems like when it comes to implementing those on a wider scale, there is no push. We recently had a young man who does container farming who was unable to expand his business here because of regulatory issues. And he had to take his business to the Bahamas. He's from the Cayman Islands. He was born and raised here, came up with this amazing idea and had to take it elsewhere because he couldn't get past all the red tape. And I think what I really want is to see our government officials take that initiative and really push, and I mean push hard for these issues, because you can promise and say and sign this treaty and that treaty, but if I am not seeing that work that is actionable, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my children and my future children? I think that's my main point. I just want to see more done on a more serious level.
Perfect. Thank you guys very much. Priscilla, Aliyah, Dwayne, thank you for joining me in this episode of Climate Tracker Calabash podcast. And to our listeners, thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of the week.